Howdy, Banger pals. Blayne Smith joining you for another Overkill Reviews, Banger's weekly metal review show. Last week, I gave you a bit of a reprieve from the constant assault with the King Gizzard record, but the chaos is back this week. Take it away, boys. Yes, today I'm talking about the new album from Concrete Winds. It's called Concrete Winds. It comes out August 30th, which is a little bit in the future. The August release schedule is all over the place, so I won't be able to have any clips that aren't from the two singles that are out, but there's a good chance you haven't heard those two singles, or at least haven't heard both of them, so you'll probably hear something fresh in here. I'm going to talk about the record. It's coming out on Sepulchral Voice Records August 30th, like I said, so you can get a pre-order in early if you like it. This grinding death two-piece is from Finland, and they formed back in 2019. If you're familiar with death metal band Vorum, this is two of those guys. If you're not familiar with Vorum or Concrete Winds, there isn't much else to tell you here. Their last record was a Metal Monthly pick, I can say that. Came out back in November of 2021. What we're listening to here is just absolute chaos. And thanks again to this weird August release schedule, I'm getting the opportunity to bump them up to full review status. But do they deserve it? Only one way to find out. Let's get to the review. While the Swedes have claim to the term chainsaw for guitar tone, this is a much more literal interpretation of a guitar sounding like a chainsaw. No, stop. That's not what I meant. I'm not on board with the Limp Bizkit renaissance, the Limp Bizkit-assance we're going through, if you will. It's wacky. I don't know why it's happening. 90s and 2000s revival is awful and must be purged from the earth.
Little bit of biscuit, little bit. Smidge of biz, itty bitty bit, biscuit.
No itty bitty bit of biscuit.
Anyways, Concrete Winds don't really know what slow down means. The guitars are a wild assault for every second that a pick touches the string. If you're a fan of Spirit Possession, who I've talked about on here many times before, this is like that in a fucking blender. This is a band that would be as home on a noise bill as they would be on a metal one. Somehow, PJ's work is still pretty listenable from a normal human perspective, though. He finds cool rhythms to click into, and he's almost playing guitar like it's drums until he gets to a solo. And speaking of drums, Mikko's playing is as much of a draw as PJ's work. He manages that fine line between chaotic pummeling drums without ever crossing into the grating, annoying sound that can happen when you're doing this much. He balances switching up what he's doing frequently enough to keep anything from getting tiresome, but not so frequently that it just turns into a brown mess. And there's no one else in the band. Also, just like Spirit Possession, this is a wild amount of noise coming from two people, so let's get on to the next blurb. Have I just been describing a salvia trip so far? Fast, intense, over before you realize it, and also kind of trippy, too.
I'm freaking out, man.
As a great way to cut through the chaos, the solos have this psychedelic vibe to them that adds a lot of fun to the record and dials down the pure harshness of things. This is not an entry-level metal album by any means, but this does a good job of providing a hook that I think will be appealing to a broader range of people, but maybe I've just fried my brain on this stuff and I can't tell what's normal anymore. Regardless, every song is littered with little parts that have an injection of wacky fun into the terror copter they're otherwise flying. It's nuts how many little pieces of flair they can toss into these tracks when none of them cross over the 4-minute mark and a few don't even cross over the 2-minute line. They're a constant treat and shift the vibe of the record super well. But Blayne, you might ask, if the songs are that short, how can they make up a full album? Are there like 18 of them? No, there are 9 tracks, bringing the total runtime to 25 minutes and 1 second, which sounds short, and it is short. And the record feels even shorter than that because it is a really fun trip. And now that sounds like a bad thing, but I think is the right approach from like a philosophical perspective. And not to get too macro level, but let me break down why I think that is. The quantity of music being played here is that of a full record, regardless of what the timestamp says. There are so many notes being played across this thing that they've turned in an essay with enough content. They've just done the reverse of most college students and made the margins smaller and the space between letters closer. It's not the way people normally cheat, and it's not cheating at all. It's making your life harder, but that's the way they chose to do it. Like a band like Bellwitch can play a 45-minute song, and these guys can play a minute and 47-second song, and there's probably the same amount of notes across the two. One is just vacuum packed, and I love both equally. If this was any longer, it could start to irritate, but with this length, you actually want to start the record up again and maybe give it a second listen. And yeah, just the correct way to go for something like this. And speaking of keeping things fresh, HelloFresh meal kits always keep you fresh, healthy. No, I'm just kidding. There's not ads here. The only thing I have to ask you is if you can toss us a couple of bucks over on our Patreon, because y'all are very generous. You give us some bucks over there, and then we don't have to put ads here. We can just keep talking about metal records, and they can be as obscure as I want. Concrete wins. Actually, speaking of keeping things fresh, they employ one other trick to keep the sonic onslaught manageable for listeners. Harsh industrial passages. Yeah, that's not what you were expecting, but quite effective. They're used sparingly to outro and intro some of the tracks. There's no full interlude song on the album, and they really pay dividends. They're all short enough that by the time you notice what's happening, they're over. Despite this, though, they managed to keep up the intensity of the album due to the nature of the sound, but release some of the pressure that's built up from constant BPMs this high. They also have a cool effect of coloring the rest of the album around them. While you may have thought the band sounded like some out-of-control diesel-powered threshing monstrosity without them, with their addition, it's almost impossible to picture them as anything else here. Hear how it intros a track and get a feel of the vibe. This record is just dripping with originality, and I always love finding something that's carving its own path and still finding new ways to innovate in metal. It's obviously not going to be for everyone, as it's a lot to take in. Regardless of whether you like this, though, this still should be something that at least gets you excited, because while I love me some metal that sounds the same as stuff I love, we need fresh ideas like this. August is drawing to a close, and releases are becoming a little more normal, so I don't know how long I'll be able to keep up this wackiness, but this is maybe the last of these little releases for a while, and it's a great one to go out on. 4.5 out of 5 skulls that are all just fucked up like the cover. I love their covers too. They're always just a crazy, insane mess, which reflects what's inside the record pretty well. So that's the end of this one, but of course I have shoutouts for you. Like I said, the closest band that sounds anything like this is Spirit Possession, and they don't even fully sound like this, so I don't have anything that sounds like this for you. But if you would like 2 good records, Blind Monarch released The Dead Replenish the Earth independently last week, August 16th. This is a doom record, so very opposite BPM, but very similar intensity, aggression, feel, not quite vibe, but yeah, great choice. And if you just want some Norwegian black metal, Koldbrann, Ingen, Dark Essence Records. It comes out this Friday, August 23rd. So there's two more for you. Have you been enjoying Blayne's summer of indie summer underground, summer underground? I don't know what. I should have came up with a name for it and done like a thing, but boy, it's too late now. Let me know in the comments below. See you, gang.
Yeah.